Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. This week, Mississippi has finally passed the medical marijuana bill into law. We'll talk with one of the lead negotiators on this issue. Representative Yancey talks about medical marijuana and what's left on the House of Representatives agenda. Also, the Legislative Black Caucus reacts in protest as the Senate passes a so-called critical race theory ban. Senator Angela Turner Ford joins us to explain their walkout and offer her thoughts on redistricting and reapportionment. That's all straight ahead on Mississippi Insight. Well, it's been 9 months since the state Supreme Court essentially overturned the votes of more than 68% of Mississippi voters on Initiative 65 in medical marijuana. Now the Mississippi legislature has passed a medical marijuana law and the governor has signed it. We begin with reaction from advocates and business owners about this big development. Here's 12 News' Kayla Thompson.
We've been through so much over the past year and a half.
Angie Calhoun says she's excited that Senate Bill 2095 is now law, and she believes that patients won't have to wait long for the alternative medicine they need.
I know that Dr. Dobbs and his staff, they're working to make that happen as soon as possible.
Advocates say they were disappointed by the way things went with Initiative 65, but felt this time around things were different, and now look forward to the economic boost it will bring.
We see in other states that have just a medical program that those economic benefits are great. It's estimated 2 of every $3 that is generated in the cannabis industry cycles back into the community.
Now the question is which companies want to participate.
So we're still looking to do more partnerships, and that's not just for me. Let me be real clear. This is about the economics of Mississippians being able to get on the ground floor of something that's going to be massive just from looking at other states and the financial wherewithal that comes with that. So it's just not so much.
Now that it has become law, advocates, business owners, and patients are glad to end a long battle for this program. In Jackson, Kayla Thompson, 12 News.
The law puts medical marijuana oversight firmly in the hands of the state health department, and they announced Friday that they are already working on registration procedures for both licensing and patients. They plan to start accepting online license applications for patients, medical practitioners, cultivation facilities, and others by June of this year. Well, we want to bring in one of the lawmakers who helped negotiate this new law. Republican Yancey is now a state representative for District 74 in Rankin County. He chairs the House Committee on Drug Policy. Representative Yancey, welcome to Mississippi Insight.
Thank you, Byron. It's great to be with you today.
Well, you heard the health department's progress report on setting up a new medical marijuana program. Are you satisfied that they're moving with appropriate speed?
I think the health department is going to be ready in 120 days, as stated in the law. They were ready after Initiative 65 a year ago to begin putting that in place until the Supreme Court, threw the whole thing out on a technicality. So the health department has been preparing for this for a long time, and they have most of their regulations in place. And so they've got 120 days looking at around June the 1st. To begin licensing all these folks. And so we feel confident that they're going to be ready and that we're going to have a great medical marijuana program in place.
We should remind people that the bill initially put oversight into the hands of the Agriculture and Commerce Department, and that drew a lot of criticism from Commissioner Andy Gibson. How important was the shift from the Agriculture to the Health Department in terms of getting a final deal signed into law?
So we just thought that it would be more efficient to have 2 state agencies rather than 3 involved, and we left it open so that the Department of Health could still contract out to any agency that they would like to contract with, including the Department of Agriculture. So I think Commissioner Gibson has indicated that he would be willing to help if called upon with his Agricultural Theft Bureau if that need arises. So the Health Department is aware that the Agriculture Department is available to help them. Of course, the Bureau of Revenue is going to be regulating our dispensaries.
This has been a big relief politically, given the overwhelming support for medical marijuana at the ballot box. Are you happy that it's finally got done?
Well, I'm thrilled that it's done. It's been a long process. I got involved last July. Senator Blackwell had been involved, over a year ago. He had a bill in the Senate before there was ever a bill in the House. And it was a long road. We worked through all the summer and the fall, and had been told that when the Senate and the House reached an agreement that the governor would call a special session. Of course, we reached an agreement on September 24th, and the governor still was not satisfied with the agreement that we came to. And so we listened to his concerns, and we made many of the changes, I believe 8 of the 11 changes that he asked for. But, throughout the course of the fall and winter, it became clear that the governor was not going to call a special session, and it was going to come down to us getting it done in the regular session. It's been a long time coming. I've never seen a bill that's been vetted as thoroughly as this bill in my time. There have been so many different considerations on this issue, whether they were political or they were medical or they were religious or they were municipality or county issues, or they were from the research or testing aspect of it. We have worked very hard to answer all the questions and concerns that people from all of these different areas of, where this medical marijuana industry would touch. And ultimately, we answered all of our critics and came up with a bill that of course, 100% of the people are not going to be happy with, but we found a bill that was maybe the Goldilocks place that was just right for everyone to sort of get on board with. And you saw that with nearly a 90% vote in the Senate and in the House. And so we did the best we could to come up with a workable bill. It's a good starting point for us to have something in place to help those folks with debilitating illnesses like cancer and multiple sclerosis and ALS and on we could go, HIV, AIDS, folks to have relief from their pain, from their seizures, relief from not being able to eat, not having an appetite and just wasting away. We're giving these medical practitioners another option, another tool in the toolkit other than opioids to help folks who have these kinds of issues, many of them who are terminal and who just, would have more quality of life with their family as they are dying with the use of medical cannabis as opposed to being in an opioid-induced coma.
Also on the drug policy front, you have a bill that would add kratom as a list of Schedule I controlled substances. Are there consumers considered it useful for relieving pain, for instance? And what's the status of the bill, and why did you feel like this was important?
Sure. Okay, so I received several letters about kratom. I got a letter from the Mississippi Board of, the medical doctors, the State Medical Association, asking me to put kratom on the Schedule I list. I got a letter from the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics asking me to put kratom on the Schedule I list. I got a letter from my sheriff in Rankin County. I got a letter from the sheriff in Simpson County. I got a letter from the district attorney in Rankin and Madison. There are 27 cities and 12 counties in Mississippi that have already banned kratom. Alabama, Tennessee, and Arkansas have already banned kratom. Kratom has no medicinal value. It cannot be imported into our country as a medicine or as a food. If you look at the product, these products are sold in gas stations. They look like candy. They're right there on the counter. Any child can walk in and buy it. And it says only to be used as a botanical specimen. And so it's being brought into our country under the guise of a botanical specimen, but it's being used by people to get some sort of drug high, and it's not regulated, and it's being abused by children. And so there have been a lot of problems with this drug, and there have even been deaths with this drug. And many of the people, around us, our contiguous states, along with counties and cities all over Mississippi, the city of Brandon just banned the sale of kratom. So, it's happening all over the place. And rather than have this piecemeal structure, and I got, with all the support that I had from these different agencies, I just went ahead and asked to put kratom on the Schedule I list. And so that's what we did in the House, and now it'll go to the Senate for their consideration.
I want to get your reaction to another important issue before the legislature. I know you supported Speaker Philip Gunn's Tax Freedom Act, which would adjust our tax structure and eventually eliminate the state income tax. Now the Senate has its own Tax Relief Act. It cuts the grocery taxes too and eliminates car tag fees and makes other adjustments. It doesn't call for the tax elimination on the Senate side. It has Lieutenant Governor Hoseman's support. Do you think income tax elimination will be a tough sell in the Senate, or is there room there to negotiate what you guys are looking for?
Well, I'd never say never. There's always room to negotiate. Both sides are looking at income tax relief. The House plan is a much stronger plan than the Senate plan. The Senate plan might be called income tax relief light, or it's just not nearly the same. I mean, we're talking about getting rid of the state income tax with the House plan. Talking about cutting car tag in half with the House plan. And the Senate plan just really doesn't do very much. It's just kind of it's just kind of a do something for the sake of saying we did something. And but maybe there's somewhere in the middle we can meet to do something that really helps most Mississippians with their income tax. I think it would be wonderful if we were one of the states that did not have a state income tax. I think it would cause other businesses across the country to look at Mississippi and possibly want to locate here. Create more jobs for people, and better high-paying jobs, and just a better standard of living for folks all the way around.
All right, Representative Lee Yancey, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time this week.
Byron, thanks for having me on.
The state Senate has passed a bill that is nominally aimed at banning critical race theory in our school systems from K through 12 to college level. The bill itself, Senate Bill 2113, barely references CRT by name. It bars schools from teaching that a particular sex, race, ethnicity, religion, or national origin is inherently superior to others, or that individuals should be adversely treated based on such characteristics. After a fierce debate on January 21st, the bill passed on a vote of 32-2, with 18 senators marked as absent or not voting. Those senators were part of a walkout before the vote, protesting the bill. One of those Democratic senators joins us now. Senator Angela Turner Ford is a Democrat serving Clay, Lowndes, Noxubee, Oktibbeha counties in District 16. She chairs the Senate's Public Property Committee and has a seat on appropriations, redistricting, and reapportionment, Medicaid, and several other key committees. And she's also chairwoman of Mississippi's Legislative Black Conference. Senator Turner Ford, welcome to Mississippi Insight.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity for the interview today.
Well, let's kick off with your January 31st public statement on SB 2113. You wrote that this bill is designed to, quote, ban teaching of Mississippi's civil rights history. Remind folks what else you had to say about this piece of legislation.
Well, this legislation was dropped here in the state of Mississippi. There have been other bills filed here in the state, but then there are also these bills that are being filed in various states throughout the country. And it's just not a problem here that needs to be addressed. It's been stated that critical race theory is not being taught in our public schools. And certainly, we want to move on to deal with matters that are more important and that actually affect, how our students and citizens are able to live and thrive here in the state of Mississippi.
Why was it important for you and many of your caucus colleagues to walk out of the debate on this and not go on the record voting against it?
We have so many serious problems to address here. We're still in the midst of the COVID pandemic. Critical race theory is just a term that I think people don't really understand. It's I think I've read an article that said it's kind of like cryptocurrency. People hear about it, but what do they really know? And so instead of voting and taking a position on a bill that really is no effect here, why stay there and continue to be on record to vote for it? Taking a stand, making sure that our position is known, and we do not want to be a part of political rhetoric.
The bill awaits House consideration as we tape this interview. What do you think its chances are there in the House?
It could pass there. I think that there have been public statements made about critical race theory. I have no idea how the House is going to handle it, but I think the members of the Mississippi Legislative Black Caucus will oppose it when it is presented on the floor there. I think you may see it may be a different type of response, but there will be a response from the Black members who are sitting when the bill is presented to them.
Given the language of the bill and its prohibitions on curriculum, and some would say on free speech, is this inevitably headed for a court battle?
I believe that it could, and I think it actually puts our educators in a position where, they're not sure what the backlash could be if they're simply teaching and presenting historical facts and occurrences to their students. And I think that that's the issue that the bill raises. History is history. We can't change it. What is the problem with our students being presented that information simply from a historical perspective? I think the bill as it's drafted is going to create a chilling effect among our educators.
We still have a couple of months to go in the 2022 session. What are the big items on your agenda as far as what you'd like to see passed this year?
Well, one of the major issues before us, I would say, is going to be the state's budget. Then there's also the American Rescue Plan dollars that have been appropriated to the state of Mississippi. We want to see those dispersed and spent in a manner that is equitable and that can be transformative to all segments of our community. So we will be watching those bills closely. Congressional redistricting, statewide redistricting is also very important. So, those are issues that we will have to tackle as the session moves forward, and we will watch those closely.
When you talk about the COVID money that's being distributed, what's your biggest concern? Are you concerned that not everyone's going to get the money that needs the money?
Absolutely. There are part of those funds, one of the uses that has been specified in the American Rescue Plan Act would be those water sewer needs. And, there are just many areas throughout the state that have to tackle, making those repairs to their water sewer systems. And they simply did not receive the funds that would be needed in order to complete some of those necessary projects. They will need help. And I believe that it's incumbent upon us as legislators to try to assist them and to make sure that various parts of the state receive, I would say, an equitable portion of the money so that they can meet their necessary needs and functions.
You mentioned redistricting. Let's talk about congressional redistricting. I know Congressman Thompson's district has gotten larger, adding 4 more counties to his district. What's your biggest concern about the map and how it's drawn now?
I actually presented an alternative map that was not received by my Senate colleagues, but it showed that the 3rd congressional district, in addition to the 2nd, could see significant gains in the Black voting age population. Mississippi is changing, and I think that it's incumbent upon us as we look at the population numbers, as we look at these congressional districts, try to formulate maps that adequately affect, or I would say show, where people live. And we need to try to categorize those groups where people can have political leverage if at all possible. Adding those 4 southwestern counties to Congressional District 2, I think is a huge move. I believe that there were other areas that could have been brought into Congressional District 2 to shore up those numbers without traveling the entire portion of the state on the western side. So there were other alternatives that were available. I attempted to present a map that could present those alternatives, and we'll just have to see if there's going to be any litigation that is filed as a result of the plan that has been adopted by the Senate and the House.
The NAACP is asking a panel of federal judges to rule on the constitutionality of this plan. Do you think this issue is going to wind up back in the legislature for adjustments, depending on those judges' findings?
It could. Who knows, what the judges will find at this point, and certainly if we're directed to redraw the lines, or if they actually issue instructions to us, then we may have to revisit that issue.
Talk about the process of legislative reapportionment. Do you see another brawl brewing with Republican leaders on this front?
It's hard to say right now. We've actually just been kind of meeting, I would say, individually with those who help us draw the maps. And there have not been any, I would say, opinions expressed in our open meetings. It's hard to see, but it may. And certainly, if there are opposing positions and we need to, take a firm approach, that's what we'll do.
What is the status on the equal pay measure this session? Both Senate and House have bills in the works. Is this an issue that lawmakers are finally willing to push through?
I know that there is an appetite to have an equal pay bill. There's a bill that's pending in the Senate that's actually on the calendar. There were other versions of the bill that were filed that did not make it out of committee, but I believe that the bill that may be brought before us needs changes, and there will be amendments that will be offered to try to make that bill more palatable and more effective for those who could fall subject to discriminatory pay. So I don't like the bill in its version currently, and that's why it's going through the legislative process. We will attempt to amend and hopefully come up with a product that we can all be proud of.
Senator Angela Turner Ford, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, and we'll be right back. Big thanks to lawmakers Angela Turner Ford and Lee Yancey for their insight this week. We'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown. From all of us here at 12 News, make it a great weekend.